The Batman. A man praised as a hero by many in Gotham City for his crusade against crime throughout the Dark Knight trilogy. However, imagine after the events of the films, a lawyer in Gotham viewed Bruce Wayne's vigilantism through the lens of the justice system. Batman's actions reveal a litany of offenses that would warrant serious time behind bars. And not that Mr. Wayne would care, but he would be charged with massive monetary fines as well. Today, we will examine what the charges leveled against Batman would be, considering his actions throughout the Dark Knight trilogy. Luckily for Batman, his first crime in the film was arson because he deliberately set fire to the League of Shadows base, but this can be argued as self-defense. Now that Bruce Wayne is back in Gotham and using his training for good, it doesn't take long for him to break the law. He takes a visit to see Lieutenant Gordon by breaking into the courthouse and using an office stapler to imitate a gun so that Gordon would listen to him. Burglary, breaking and entering, 3 years in prison. Bruce then does some much-needed reconnaissance on the mob by wiretapping some of Carmine Falcone's men. Wiretapping, 3 years plus a $15,000 fine. Batman infiltrates their operation at the docks and brutally attacks all of the men and interrogates Falcone. 17 battery and aggravated assault charges, 8.5+ years in prison. He then saves Rachel and gives her some evidence to get things moving, even though he had already brought Carmine Falcone to justice. This is extortion, 1 year plus in prison, not to mention that the justice I mentioned earlier resulted in a false imprisonment charge because Batman left Falcone chained to his bat signal for the police to find him. It sounds heroic, but it's actually false imprisonment and is 6 months plus in prison. Batman, unsatisfied with the police progress on the Falcone case, decides to wait on a ledge in an alleyway for one of the Falcone's thugs to walk down. He then captures the thug by shooting a rope around his ankles and pulling him high up in the air. He interrogates the thug but isn't happy with the answers, so he releases the tension on the rope, sending the thug falling back to earth. Just before he hits the ground, Batman slams the brakes, only to reel the thug back up for more interrogation. Kidnapping, 5 years plus in prison. Following the lead he got from the thug, Batman breaks into an apartment and finds toys filled with what looks like drugs. He takes one of the toys and leaves. Burglary, 3 years plus. The drugs inside the toy are actually a toxic chemical agent, which leads Batman to discovering Scarecrow. On his crusade to reaching Scarecrow himself, Batman racks up 7 battery charges for beating up and possibly fatally wounding 7 guards. 3.5+ years for wiretapping again. 3+ years plus a $15,000 fine after he meets the Scarecrow. Batman unleashes the poison onto him, causing the Scarecrow horrific psychological hallucinations. Batman uses this to his advantage by coercing him to release information under this state. This is unlawful use of a chemical agent, with 2 years plus and coercion, plus 1 year. As Batman is fleeing the scene with the police are arriving and arresting the criminals, he releases a swarm of bats, which causes problems for the police trying to arrest people, giving him another plus 1 year for obstruction of justice. Batman now has a plan, but as tensions rise, he has to now escape the Gotham City police. He has to take a shortcut through a prison building and a prison cell. He blows the door off the cell. Possession of a destructive device, plus 3 years in prison. Walks into the cell and blows a hole in the wall to reach a tunnel connected to his Batcave. There were 2 convicts in the cell Batman exploded and walked through, aiding escape, plus 1 year. Now, having access to the tumbler, Batman upgrades the severity of his legal actions. He can easily escape the police who want this vigilante arrested. He drives a cop car with 2 police officers inside to try and escape. 2 aggravated assault on a police officer, 3+ years in prison. Batman's escape was unsuccessful and he is now cornered by police, so he uses the weaponry on the tumbler to blow a hole big enough for him to escape. Aggravated arson, 5 years plus. Now on the run from police cars and helicopters, 2nd-degree eluding arrest, 5 years plus in prison. During the police chase, Batman set out explosives and spikes to stop the police, resulting in 3 aggravated assault charges on a police officer, 4.5 years plus each. Now, to properly escape the police, Batman and the Tumbler go on a damage spree, driving off bridges through buildings, gates, walls. Criminal mischief, 3+ years plus a $15,000 fine. Batman now recruits Lieutenant Gordon to stop the poisonous gas from spreading all across Gotham. To do this, Gordon uses the tumbler to exploit the train tracks, causing the train carrying the toxic cargo to fall off its tracks, killing most of the criminals inside. I guess this can also luckily be just self-defense. So at the end of Batman Begins, Bruce Wayne has been sentenced with 59 plus years in prison and $45,000 in fines. The Dark Knight kicks off with a bang for Batman. The Tumbler is back, causing chaos, blowing up parts of parking garages to intimidate some criminals and Batman wannabes. Aggravated arson, 5 plus years. He then uses excessive force on most of the thugs. 4 counts of battery plus 2 years each, and leaves the thugs tied up in the parking garage. 7 counts of false imprisonment, 3.5 plus years each. Although it is legal to carry out a citizen's arrest, the law restricts citizens to using the bare minimum of force possible, and only when a crime has been committed. Anytime Batman used excessive force or unreasonable tension would be illegal and would lead to criminal charges brought against him. Let alone Batman using South Korean smugglers to get in and out of China, abduct Mr. Lau, and commit crimes internationally. But once in China, Batman infiltrated the targeted skyscraper by rigging it with sticky explosives. Possession of explosives, 14 plus years. He then flies through a window of the building, burglary, 2.5 years plus. Beats up multiple Chinese guards, 7 counts of battery, 3.5 years each. Captures Mr. Lau and escapes on the South Korean aircraft. Kidnapping, 10 plus years. To finally return home on the aircraft with Mr. Lau, unlawful entry into the United States, 6 months plus in prison plus a $250 fine. Batman is now intensely pursuing the Joker by trying to find Sal Marani. To do this, he lifted fingerprints from a crime scene, tampering with evidence, 6 months plus, beat up thugs in a nightclub, 8 counts of battery at 4 years plus each, before reaching Marani and of course interrogating him. Batman dangles Marani off the side of a building, false imprisonment, 6 months plus. He then ups the stakes by dropping Marani, aggravated assault, 1.5 years plus. Batman is now going dark to try and evade the Joker. He destroys all evidence in his Batcave, tampering with evidence, 6 months plus. Pushed to his limit in his pursuit to capture the Joker, the Batman switches to his Batbike, leaving behind the Tumbler to self-destruct. Arson, 6 months plus. Batman takes a shortcut through a parking lot, blowing up cars on his way. 3 counts of aggravated arson, 15 years plus. He continues the shortcut, destroying everything in his path. Criminal mischief, 3 years plus. With the Joker finally caught, the Batman gets to interrogate him. Only this time, the interrogation is at the police station. The Joker manipulates Batman into loosening his cool, causing him to attack and beat the Joker. Battery, 6 months plus in prison. This crime was also committed at the police station, so it would be hard for Bruce Wayne to argue this in court. Batman takes it up a notch again in order to find the Joker and stop him. With the help of technology provided by Lucius Fox, Batman hacked into every phone in Gotham, creating a sonar network to be able to map every inch of Gotham City. Unlawful interception of communications, 5 years plus in prison and a $250,000 fine. Now Batman has finally located the Joker and figured out his master plan, involving hostages, fairies, explosives, all doomed to collapse in each other. The SWAT team thinks they are closing in on the hostages, but it's a trap. So to stop them, Batman must immobilize the task force. 6 cases of aggravated assault on a police officer, 9 years plus in prison. Batman again uses explosives to blow up part of the building, neutralizing another task force. Aggravated arson, 5 years plus. The SWAT team thinks they are closing in on Batman. However, Batman caught them in a trap, stopping the SWAT team's advance. Obstructing of justice, 1 year plus. The Batman did finally stop the Joker, so I guess the situation with Batman murdering Harvey Dent can be seen as self-defense. Now in The Dark Knight Rises, the Batman really cleaned up his act regarding committing petty crimes. However, he did commit 2 of his biggest crimes in this film. Batman unknowingly created the Uprising from the League of Shadows himself. Batman's military-grade tanks were taken by the League of Shadows and used to take the city. The fusion reactor that Bane was using to destroy Gotham was built by Wayne Enterprises. Bruce Wayne was well aware of the dangers, and he deliberately hid it from the public and the army. He is charged with possession of multiple unregistered military-grade tanks, 15 years plus and a $250,000 fine. And for the possession of a nuclear device hidden in a civilian area, a life sentence. The Gotham City justice system also charges Batman with the damages to the city from the result of his crimes. Damages, a fine of $1.5 million at a minimum. Batman's full sentence at the end of the trilogy is 146 years plus in prison, and a life sentence and a fine of at least $1,795,250,000. Luckily for Bruce Wayne, though, the fine shouldn't be a problem.